This is season number 19 of Bass Talk Live with Matt Pengrack. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Aftco, Strike King Lures, Sunline, Big Bite Baits, Spro, X-Zone Lures, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, and Pro Guide Batteries. Hit them with the hook, Jeffries.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. And yes, we are back in studio after a full week off. We just had some crazy stuff that went down. Obviously, I was under the weather the last week, and then we went to Toledo Bend. Toledo Bend, not known for its internet service, but we are back in studio. And on my way back, I was like, well, the MLF Invitationals are at Lake Eufaula, which is an hour from the house. So I had BTL regular and fan favorite Matt Stefan, who was successfully competing there. And I was like, dude, just stop by the studio on the way back to Wisconsin. Yeah. And you were like, yeah, let's do it. So here you are. Thanks for jumping on BTL, and welcome to the BTL studio, Matt.
Dude, as soon as you invited me, I'm like, I got to come check out the BTL live studio. This is something I've watched for so long, you know, whether it was here or the old studio, where it's like, I got to come see what it's actually like. And I didn't know you had a giant production team. You've got people running all over to help out. It's pretty impressive.
No, I've got Joe LaBarbera. He's crashing at my house for a little bit. I'm rooming with him in the Bassmaster Opens. He does a lot of media for different companies behind the scenes. So he's helping to get me dialed in. But I mean, it's just me. Yeah, it's just me, man.
But it's more impressive than what I was expecting. And
really, how so?
Well, the coolest part about it is all your trinkets. Like, I could spend hours going around looking at all of the different things that are like hanging on the walls. What a lot of the viewers don't get to see is all the walls are surrounded with things. Everything from like your old college jerseys and like different plaques, and there's different caricatures. I mean, it's a pretty cool looking room.
Do I need to do like a Cribs version of the BTL studio at one point?
I think that would be cool. I think a lot of the viewers would love that.
Yeah. So I got I don't know if it's called a reciprocating saw or a miter saw. So my dad sent me one of these saws, and this is a really good desk on my end. But the only one thing that I have to do at the studio is you are lacking some foot room over there.
Yeah, I'm a tall guy. I'm 6'4", and I assume Hallman probably is the same way when he's here.
Hallman has not been in studio yet. Hallman has not seen the studio.
Oh man, I thought I'd have some like Hallman whiskers.
No, Hallman has 4 kids and all sorts of other jobs, and now he's on the Elite Series, so he just has not had time, and it's an hour drive for him from where he is in Edmond. So, but I need to take the desk and then cut the metal piece out, and then somehow round the edges so you have some foot room. I thought you were only like 6'2". I didn't realize like you're intimidatingly tall.
It helps me with sight fishing.
Does it? Do you think that really? Yeah. You think that's a real thing?
100%.
Really?
Yeah. Well, why do you? I mean, that's why people get on ladders and step on coolers, and yeah, it helps.
Do you think ladders, coolers, and sight fishing aids should be allowed? Because that's I've always heard, and I don't know if it's true or not. I've always heard it was the Roland Martin rule, where he showed up to a sight fishing event with a ladder strapped to the front deck, climbed up on the ladder, kind of the platform thing. And then they're like, hey, this is a safety issue here.
I mean, I'm kind of under the, excuse me, I'm kind of under the assumption people should be able to do what they want as long as it's legal.
So it was legal for that one tournament, and then they made it illegal.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like if somebody wants to bring like a 12-foot ladder and carry it in their boat, I mean, the hassle of having that in your boat would be a big enough pain in the butt where it might not be worth the advantage. I mean, and then what happens if you hook a fish? Like, I mean, think about trying to land a fish if you're 10 feet up on a ladder. That would be
great live coverage, though. Could you imagine that on MLF Live or Bass Live? You hook one and you're a story and a half up in the air.
Yeah, it would be awesome. I mean, it really is an advantage. I mean, this is the whole idea of one of the reasons why drones are outlawed in practice. You can fly a drone around and find beds, no problem. A lot easier than you can with your own eyes, because you're looking straight down on them.
What are the rules for the MLF Invitationals on drones?
We can't use them during practice.
Really?
Yeah, or our off day.
I think the Elite Series guys can.
I don't know. I can't comment on that.
I need to go through. I've always said I need to do an obscure rule show. Because, you know, in the opens that like you basically can't come in early unless your co-angler agrees to it. Like, let's say you've got a 30-pound bag and it's like 11 o'clock and you're like, we're going to go Timmy Horton it at the boat dock and eat Papa John's. And he's like, no.
So you have to stay out there, even if your fish, let's say, are struggling in the live well at that point because they're that big. You have to stay out there.
I think it's a gray area when I went through and read all the rules. There was some things with the co-anglers to where, like, as far as like returning, it has to be like mutually agreed upon.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I say if the co-angler has that much power, then they should be in the front of the boat. Right? Meaning, like, I mean, they're along. The whole idea of co-anglers, in my opinion, are to learn. You're out there to learn and not out. I mean, it's a competition, and I'm probably making some people unhappy with this, but the reality is, if you use it as a learning tool, you're going to be much better off than if you're out there trying to truly beat the other co-anglers.
Was it also not used as a make sure no one's cheating tool too? For a long time, like I feel like you had to make sure you had a co-angler paired with you that either was a pro on pro draw or someone that you didn't know that you guys kind of kept tabs on.
I mean, the reason of a co-angler is, from a business standpoint, is to make sure everyone is being legitimate in their actions on the water. I mean, that's why they're there.
Yeah. But you guys have a rule now. Do you still have to have a functioning action camera while you're competing if you do not have a camera in the boat?
Yeah, we're supposed to have a functioning camera. That's kind of our co-angler, if you want to put it that way. But even then, I mean, with GoPros, like, the problem with GoPros in the boat is, you're in some rough water like we had at Eufaula. I mean, my cameras were, I ripped one of the light ports in the back, got ripped off from some of the rough water. And it's like, well, now that's not a functioning area.
On the back of the boat?
Yeah.
You had something on the back of your boat get damaged because that's how rough it was.
Well, I had my YOLO stick in.
Okay, yeah.
And I had the camera at the top, and it it just stripped basically some of the screws for the light port.
I got you. We're going to get into that. Matt, you had a really good event, 21st place. I know you don't want to talk about this much. This happens to be a show about tournament bass fishing, so we're going to talk about it a little bit, but you've had an 18th place at Okeechobee, a 20th place at Clark Hill, a 21st at Eufaula. You've made no bones about it. Your goal is to get to the Bass Pro Tour next year. You're in second place in the Angler of the Year standings. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about Kelly Jordan.
Yeah.
Kelly Jordan rising. I was watching, I turned it on my way home from the Open, and I'm like, that's KJ on live on the third day. And then he's catching him, and it's a lot of KJ. And I'm like, holy cow, he might win the dang tournament. And then he does. First MLF win since 2005. First Bass. The last time he won with Bass was in 2006. He won 4 Bass events between 2000 and 2006, but he won a FLW Tour event in 2005. So really good to see Kelly Jordan back in the winner's circle. I'm sure we'll get him on BTL also. Tomorrow, 8:30 a.m., the legend, the myth, the man of mystery,
Babe Winkleman.
No, that's on the wall there, not Babe Winkleman. That too. Ben Milliken.
Oh, nice, dude.
He's going to be on BTL tomorrow live.
I got to tell you, man, like, so I've never met Ben, don't know Ben. I am legitimately hooked on his YouTube series around his opens, and I'm so happy to see him doing it from a YouTube standpoint, because I do a lot of YouTube now, and there's a lot of criticism out there that people doing YouTube shouldn't be producing fishing content if you're not like a proven angler,
right?
And what he's
doing, what gives you the right to tell someone how to throw a Cinco when you've never proven that you can catch them on it?
Exactly. Like, where's your credibility? And honestly, like, what I've come to realize, being that I do a lot of YouTube now, I feel like the biggest YouTube fishing channels whether they're at a tournament angler or not a tournament angler, they're really good fishermen. And like Ben now is just proving that like so well.
Yeah. It's crazy what he's done. I mean, you so I see a comment on here that said, Clay said Ben is reverse engineering a pro bass career. And we've seen a lot of the anglers get into the YouTube. You're one of them. I mean, you do a video a day on your YouTube channel, but you started out, I mean, you're a hardcore tournament angler. That's how you provide for your family. And then you brought in the YouTube element with it, with your sponsors. But for Ben to go from YouTube, and he is a tournament fisherman back in the day, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but X's and O's, to say that he was going to stick with the big baits, that he was going to swing for the fence, that he was going to crush them, and that he was going to, I mean, dude, I talked to him during practice, right? He texts me, we talk a little bit. I don't have anything to offer. We'll talk about this a little bit tomorrow with Ben, and we're talking obviously about the Bassmaster Open on Toledo Bend that Ben Milliken just won, 77 pounds, 14 ounces over 3 days. He had like an 18 or 19 pound lead at one point. He did like 29, 26, and 20, did it all with big baits. I mean, he was in a different stratosphere. But he texts and calls and he's like, you know, what do you think it'll take? And I'm like, dude, I'm not playing the same game that you're playing. Like, I ask him, this is 2 times in a row, are you on him? And he just says yes. Like, what do you do with that? And then I say, like, what does that mean? And he's like, I've got a couple schools of giants. And then I say, what does that mean? And he goes, 6 to 10s. And I'm like, and then I say, how do you know? Right? I mean, these are all natural progression of question. He goes, well, I made 3 casts and I caught a 6, a 7, and a 9. And then you say, well, how many more are you? Then you said 30 to 50.
That's crazy.
So then he asks you what you think it's going to take to win in top 10. And you're like, I'm like, dude, I'm not playing the same game that you are. Like my numbers are not relevant to what you're doing. And he's proven that 2 in a row now. Dude,
the thing is, he's so good with the big baits. And I mean, when you talk about like big bait experts, he is by far one of the top. And when a guy like that is on with those baits and has the confidence to throw those baits, I mean, in reality, dude, he could go out and he goes out and catches two, and he's in the tournament. If he catches 3, he's got a good shot of being at the top.
And if you're catching 5 and culling, and think about the number of fish he's on. His co-angler the first day had 3 for 16.
Yeah.
He's an insane number of fish.
That's a good draw.
I want to get into him with it because I think these first 2 events are the perfect storm for Ben, because you know, when I talked to him before, he was down at Toledo Bend practicing. He does have a crazy good network, which is totally legal. He's had 2 fisheries where the fish were scattered, but there was a population of big fish offshore on very isolated things, on fisheries where they're known to eat gizzard shad and bigger baits at the right time of the year with the right conditions. But here's my deal. He's doing it the way no one's ever done it before. We're talking about a field that has Ish Monroe and Bobby Lane and Casey Scanlon and all sorts of guys who are big name guys in this thing. And he's making everyone look foolish.
So are you saying you don't think he can keep it up?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I think there are some that are tailor-made. He's going to smash him at Thousand Islands. He's going to smash him at Wheeler. But there's going to be 3 or 4 where it's not going to play.
So the question is, if it doesn't play, I mean, realistically, with the first 2, I mean, he's basically
he doesn't even have to catch him in the ones that don't play. He can finish 120th, and his average is still a 60th place.
He's whether it's a perfect storm or not, dude. He has gone out and done it like impressively in both tournaments. And I mean, when I look at the rest of the Open schedule, like you said, there's a couple more tournaments where he for sure, without a doubt, should still be able to make a lot of those same techniques play. You know, maybe you're not throwing a 8-inch glide, but you're still gonna make it work in some of those places. And you know, at this point, everyone's playing in a 9 tournament circuit. He's basically playing in a 7 tournament circuit with a huge lead.
Yeah,
like that's how it lays out.
When this was going down, obviously you're focused on your tournament, but I mean, you're around other quote tournament anglers. I mean, is this causing waves throughout the fishing industry? What Ben has done in 2 Opens so far with a 5th and a 1st and how he's done it? Like, are guys talking about it? Like, are you sitting at the house going, dude, you see what freaking Ben Milliken did over in the Opens?
Yeah, I mean, it was every day when we got back. You know, like one of the guys I room with, Chris Grow, and it's like, you know, it's like you shake your head in disbelief, but at the same time, when you get somebody who's really good with those big baits and he finds those fish, he's going to get them to bite. So it's not, I can't say I'm surprised that he did it. I think there's a lot of the fishing world that probably is surprised that he's had such a good start. You know, I remember, you know, when it first came out that Ben was fishing the Opens, there were a lot of people like, oh, he's in for a big butt whooping. Mm-hmm. And I just remember thinking, dude, it's not like he's making stuff up in his videos. I mean, he clearly knows what he's doing. Yeah. And I don't know, like you said, I would guess he's got a good network of people that he can bounce ideas off of and get some general information that's going to point him in the right direction. And when you this is the thing, you know, with information, people are always like, oh, the information, you know, this guy's got all the best locals on the lake helping him. Information is only valuable to you if you're a good enough angler to decipher how to use it on the water. Meaning, you can get the best spots on the lake. This happens all the time where two anglers go out, right? Like I could be catching them on a point, and I say, Matt, go out there and fish that point. Here's the waypoint. You go out there and you can't get a bite, right? Like that happens all of the time. And a lot of it comes down to you don't know how to set up on the point. You don't know how to do this and that. And when you get information from people, which most of the time is more of a general type thing, it's not that valuable to the angler. The best anglers out there are the ones that have a good network of information and they know how to apply it under the circumstances that they're presented with on the water. It's not just as simply get information. And honestly, like if you're an angler like myself, I don't have a network of people. I don't talk to people because I don't feel like that information is going to help me. And more than anything, it's going to actually, it throws my thought process off. I'd rather show up to the lake, break it down on my own, because then I can make adjustments on the water based on what I've seen and not what somebody else has told me. Information's a tricky game. Like it can definitely hurt you. I know a lot of anglers that have been, that have not done have had unsuccessful careers at the professional level, but always had like the best information. And they just didn't, what would happen is they go out and catch them one day and then like,
they wouldn't know how to adjust.
Yeah. We'd get like a crazy storm or a cold front and they would have no idea how to adjust and they'd bomb. I mean, I could rattle off some names and it's like, I don't even know how they were able to get the information because they're getting it from like local hammers. And it's like, how did you ever meet that how did you?
And I'm not sure what level of info Ben's got. For all I know, he could have gone down there for a week by himself and figured it out 100%.
And I'm not saying he has gotten, I'm just saying he's got a network at this point where it would not surprise me if people are throwing information out there, and whether he chooses to use that or not is completely up to him. And I'm just saying that the best anglers out there are the ones that can take some stuff in and throw most of it out.
And it's interesting because he was going up against it. You had Rob Turkler that fished the MPFL and a bunch of opens, and then Oliver Nye, who's also a big bait expert. But the one thing I think that Milliken had was he had a lot of tournament experience under his belt before he came into these opens. And both Rob and Oliver had not kind of really dove into the strategy of managing fish, finding fish, grinding out a limit, that type of thing. And that's something that you can only learn through experience. And most of that, like with Milliken, is done at team tournaments, club level tournaments, local, regional, Bass Nation, TBF stuff, where you learn the little nuances of it. So it's really hard to get thrown into that AAA level where everyone's watching you without having that foundation.
Yeah, that's a huge part of tournament fishing, is understanding like the thought process that goes into the tournament, which you establish in practice. Meaning, you might be a good fisherman, but if you don't grow up around tournaments, not grow up around tournaments, but have tournament experience, a lot of times it's hard to come up with a good solid game plan. And Ben has that. I mean, he's grown up fishing tournaments back in Nebraska or Iowa, all over the place. And from that standpoint, I think he's a very well-rounded angler, and I expect him to continue to do well. I think there might be a hiccup or two around.
I mean,
like,
what would be
but
really
that's-
terrifying is if we see him with a drop shot coming in with 28 pounds on a fishery that you're not. I mean, I fully expect him to try stuff that you're not, quote, supposed to do at Eufaula at stuff. And dude, he might just open everyone's eyes to like, hey, we thought these big giant baits were not applicable for 5-fish tournaments. We were trying to qualify for stuff, and he's blowing that notion out of the water.
So here's my question for you to ask him when he's on.
Okay.
I would like to know if his intentions are to fish the Elite Series for a long period of time.
Yeah, he's said on the show before that he's always wanted to be a professional bass fisher.
But does he want to do it? Like, is this something he wants to do for a year, or is this something he wants to do for like 15, 20 years?
I think he wants to do it, man.
Yeah.
I think he's like in it for the long haul.
I think that's awesome. I just think I could totally see him come. He's got so many things going on. And again, I don't know him personally, so I feel kind of weird even talking about it, but I feel like he's got his hands in so many different things that this is like something he wants to do, wants to attain. And it's like, there's a lot of time to go into fishing the Elite Series and running all your other businesses. So I'd be curious to see, like,
but dude, look at all the guys on the top. I mean, Ike and Ellie, the guy's got energy drinks, socks,
it's the way
kayaks, everything. I mean, Edwin, Kevin, Skeet, all those guys, Brandon.
The best part about this, though, I feel like, is I think this is, like you said, goals for him.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the cool thing about it. Whereas most of the rest of us started out and we're like, we want to make this our career. And he's already done it. Like, he's already got a great career in fishing. He doesn't necessarily have to go fish tournaments, and he's choosing to do it because he enjoys it.
He's making some waves, man. And then he does it like the 402 with the area code with no jersey. And then, he's got his own pants with the Milliken logo, and he doesn't smile when he holds them up. I mean, dude, he's shaking up the industry.
This goes back to the whole thing. Like you mentioned at the start of this, like for me, when I started fishing, like I just want to fish tournaments. Like that's how I grew up. I love tournaments. The sponsor side, the promoting side, all of the social media is like, I know I have to do it to promote my personal career. And it's like, I just remember like in my earlier tournament days where I'd show up and I'd be the guy wearing just a t-shirt and everyone else had their tournament jerseys on. And I'm like, I don't need that. I just wearing my whatever t-shirt. Right. And I loved it. So he's bringing back memories for me. And, you know, I think it's awesome. I think it's great. The sport needs to be shaken up and stirred once in a while.
One more kind of poignant message on this topic, and then we'll move on from it. We'll take a break, and then we'll get back. We'll get back to Eufaula, Oklahoma, on a really cool tournament that went down, the third MLF Invitational stop of the year. But Bobby Colson here says Ben is growing the sport, and I actually texted that to Ben. Like, I'm like, dude, you're in the Bassmaster Classic now, like the Bassmaster Classic on Grand Lake, and a lot of Ben's followers, which he does have a huge fan base that does not follow tournament fishing. And we saw this with Turkla, and we did see this with Oliver. They brought a lot more eyeballs to that AAA level of bass fishing. Ben is introducing a bunch of people to tournament fishing, and he's making it look cool, and he's making it look exciting, and he's got a whole year to get all this momentum to roll into Grand Lake. I mean, he's got a year. I mean, think about what that he's in the freaking Bassmaster Classic. You got a dude who was just shooting YouTube videos 3 months ago, and everyone's like, oh, he's in the freaking Classic, one of 50 guys in the Bassmaster Classic. That is massive for the sport.
Dude, it's unbelievable to me, and this is one thing I've learned through doing YouTube. Like the fish tournament bass fishing is such a niche part of fishing, and Ben's got a huge following. Most of those people are not tournament bass fishing, and they're rooting. They like Ben, so they're rooting for Ben, which means Ben's going to take them to Bassmaster, and they're going to be exposed to tournament fishing, and potentially some of them might actually enjoy it and begin to watch it. I mean, I see this with my own channel, and my channel is minuscule compared to Ben's.
You got a pretty solid channel there, man.
I have a ton of people that root for me, but don't really follow tournament fishing that much, but I know they're following it now because they're rooting for me. Because when I get back at the end of the day and I go through my comments, they're like, "Oh man, you're sitting in 21st place, great job, blah blah blah." And it's like, I know they're watching it, so I've introduced some, and it really is valuable. What Ben is doing is great for the sport. And
it's
that's
good for
what
me.
We have to do.
It's good for the 172
It's
qualifiers because they're all going to Bassmaster. They're doing more page views. They're watching the weigh-in.
Yeah.
Those numbers all reflect on what we're trying to do as anglers when we garner sponsorship.
If we want to take the sport of bass fishing, tournament bass fishing to the next level, we need these things to happen. We should be rooting for Ben to do well, because that will be a big wave of additional fandom, which should hopefully bring additional revenue into the sport, which will help both of us sitting here while Ben is, hopefully crushing it. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
I've been doing this full time since 2008. You've been doing this full time since when?
2011.
I've never seen anything like it, and he's not even at the Elite Series or BPT level right now. I mean, you think of like maybe a Derek Remitz who came in and went like first, second in his first couple that he fished, but I mean, that's just a quiet sod farmer from Minnesota on the Elite Series, and it cools off. But I mean, I've not seen anything like this in my 15 years of you.
I mean, right off the top of my head, no, but I think it goes back to how big his following already was. Meaning, like when Derek came in and did really good in his first couple tournaments, nobody knew who he was. So it was in the bass fishing world. It was cool that this guy had done this, but there wasn't a big enough fan base out there like, oh, pushing this. Well, in this case, it's Ben has stepped in and done this, and all of a sudden he's how many hundreds of thousands of followers that he has are helping to promote that and share that.
Gary West says, I love that he doesn't even wrap his Camus, just goes out there and swings on him. I talked to him about this. He goes, dude, my camera is all in the boat. So he wrapped the front deck of his boat, but then didn't wrap the outside of his boat because it's not required. Now he can go out and practice. He wears a freaking hood. He wears his sunglasses. He just looks like a dude out there idling around in the abyss, checking stuff. No one thinks about it. He still gets all the sponsor pop because of his videos with all the logo placement inside the boat, and he's incognito outside. Another brilliant move.
Well, yeah, that's one of the biggest things out there. I mean, this weekend we had high school guys there was a high school tournament, and I know they're driving around looking, and they can tell who everyone is, and they can look to see who's and where in the points. And if you don't know what Ben's boat looks like, you could be out there trying to find him. You could drive right by him and not know who it is.
It's good stuff. All right, we're going to take a break. We are back in studio with Matt Stefan live, fresh off of a top 25 finish at the third MLF Invitational on Eufaula. We're going to get into Lake Eufaula, the lake itself, how it was fishing. I'm from Oklahoma. I fish the thing multiple times every year. Very interested to see what your takeaway is. We'll dive into Kelly Jordan's win. It's BTL on a Monday, back live in studio, April 17th. We will be back right after this.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
Everything you need, one legendary brand. Top on Strike King.
So I'm a big guy, a lunker, a two sandwich eating kind of man. And on behalf of all of those bigger, I gotta say it once and for all, it's bad enough that the fish look smaller in our hands. The last thing we should have to worry about is getting quality outdoor clothing that fits. Avco, any fish, any.
Elite Series Pro Daryl Gleason here. My Pro Guide batteries keep me going on those long tournament days and long practice days. Always plenty of juice, never fail. The best part about Pro Guide batteries, it's the people behind the company. They have over 40 years experience in the battery business, keeping all of us fishermen out on the water longer, catching more fish. Check them out at ProGuideBatteries.com.
What's up, Bass Talk Live fans? Brandon Polnick here. And ever since I won a couple Bassmaster Elite Series events on X-Zone Lures, I've been getting a bunch of questions of what makes them so special and different. And really, the truth is, it's in the details. The little details, things like no cheap fillers in their plastic. That gives you more lifelike action, more realistic and vibrant colors. But don't just take my word for it. Go to www.xzonelures.com and check them out for yourself.
The great thing about the new Sensation soft plastics from Big Bite Baits, heavily scented, super soft, buoyant, comes in 7 great new shapes. I've got a couple of them of my signature series, the cliffhanger worm and the ramtail craw. Great for a flipping jig, football jig, swim jig, all that. Several other great shapes. Really excited about it. We've worked over the last year, catches fish all over the country, and I think it's going to catch fish for people everywhere you try it.
The Spro Little John crankbait has been around for almost 15 years, and it is one of my go-to crankbaits whenever I need a fish in the boat, so you can never have enough new colors. That's why Spro's coming out with a handful of new colors, including Pearl Shad, which has this bleached out white look, but it's got this pearlescent, really, really pretty. We've got Copper Shad, which looks amazing in the water. It's got that purple flake on the back, really, really pops in the water. And then if you want some real pop, we've got Sparkle Shad, nothing but sparkles all over this thing. And then last but not least, we've got the matte Sexy Shad, just a really different looking color for a crankbait. So you want to give them a little different look, that matte Sexy Shad is definitely the one to go with. All these colors are available in the original Little John and the MD.
Have you considered purchasing new electronics for your rig? The type of mounts you choose to protect your investment should be part of the decision-making process. No matter if you prefer 1, 2, or 3 graphs up front, Beatdown Outdoors has a solution for you. Adjustable, versatile, rigid, and made in the USA. What's your ultimate electronic setup? Check out the full selection of Beatdown Outdoors products by visiting beatdownoutdoors.com. All right, welcome back, BTL on a Monday. In studio guest, Matt Stefan.
I love it.
I mean, when I started when I built the studio in the house, I envisioned having guys like roll by. I got enough parking outside, enough stuff to do to where you can just like roll in and knock a show out. So this is how I envisioned it happening when I.
Yeah, it's great, except you're in like Oklahoma. There's not that much rolling by. I mean, you're like where I was at Eufaula is kind of like the furthest west for the most part. Most circuits go. I guess there's a lot of driving through Tulsa and then up if you're down in Texas. But
a lot of guys run that I-40 right through here, and I-40 is just right over here.
Where are they going?
Well, if you're anywhere east of here, you have to take I-40. I-40 is the dreaded drive through Fort Smith, past Darnell, Memphis, and then.
Yeah, but I'm saying there aren't that many anglers west of here, so it's not like they're always driving through. It was a nice drive.
What was it? An hour and 20 minutes?
Hour, from the house, like an hour and 25.
All right, let's talk MLF Invitational 5703 3-day tournament. Kelly Jordan, like I said, got his first win in a long time. Really good to see Kelly. I'm sure I will make contact with Kelly, get him on the show there. But you finished 21st in this event. For those who do not know Lake Eufaula, which they're going to get to know Lake Eufaula really well because the MPFL is supposedly going there. The Bassmaster Open's going there later this year. A lot of interesting things going on with Lake Eufaula and that type of stuff right now. But how would you describe Lake Eufaula in Oklahoma to the average bass fishing tournament fan who has never witnessed the monstrosity that is Eufaula?
So Eufaula is one of those lakes. There's not that much like online information out there. Like you've got some tournament results here and there, but there's not. It was kind of an unknown for a lot of the anglers going there. I mean, as far as I know, there hasn't been like a national level tournament there since like 2008 or something like that. It's been a long time. So there wasn't a lot of good information out there. And my takeaway is that it's a really good fishery, like a very, very good lake. It's a perfect tournament lake, meaning it's 100 and some thousand acres. It's got like basically 4 arms that you can go up. The tournament, if you take off out of the town of Eufaula, which is where we did, you're centrally located. So, you're not really running more than, I don't know, 20, maybe 30 miles in either direction or something like that. But if I were in the town of Eufaula, I would try to make that lake like a Gunnersville type situation. I think that town could thrive off of bass fishing if they built like one really good facility. And honestly, the facilities they had were pretty decent because there's a north and a south ramp that can each hold a decent amount of boats. From a fishing standpoint, it fished really well. I will say I was kind of surprised. Very little smallmouth caught. I think there was only one weighed in the tournament, and I caught 2 small keepers in practice. I wasn't targeting them, but I did. But I thought they were going to be more of a player based on things I had heard, and they weren't a player at all. But the bass are fat and healthy. I did catch some big spotted bass during practice. You can fish it any way you want. I mean, it's a typical kind of that typical Ozark Lake where there's, good rock transition banks, channel swing banks, lots of points, pea gravel. But at the same time, if you want to get away from that, you can go find some muddy water and really, do what I did, which was do a lot of flipping, do a lot of shallow water power fishing. Yeah, so I'm impressed. The biggest take, like one of the things that I'll be most interested in seeing when the NPFL, as well as when you guys get there, is does the lake fish as small as it did for us?
So it fished small for you guys.
Yeah, I would be willing to bet you 120 anglers fished from the takeoff area, which is right central, and then east at that point towards the dam. I include Longtown Creek into that.
Okay, so the Chute, Porham, Longtown, Bixby, that whole
that was where it went down. As far as I know, maybe there were some guys that caught them. I can tell you, I fished some dirty water, and I made a long run each day. And both days there were maybe 3 or 4 boats I saw make the run. The first day I never saw another tournament boat all day.
Really?
Like
is that the first time you've ever fished a tournament where you never saw another tournament boat an entire day?
I mean, when I say like not another tournament boat, I mean, I never saw anybody even running across the lake. Like
like, what the heck?
Well, it makes you think you may have made a bad decision right off the bat. But, everything I knew about the lake is that the lake has good fish everywhere. And I don't know if people really stayed away from the dirty water because it's dirty water, or if people just weren't getting many bites in it. I do feel like I didn't get, if you went to the clear water, you'd get 3 times as many bites. If you went to the dirty water, I felt like you didn't get as many bites, but the quality, instead of weeding through little fish, they were keepers. So it was kind of like, where do I want to go? And I just said, one of the things I've said this year is I'm just going to fish my strengths. I'm going to do what I want to do, have fun, fish my strengths, power fish, shallow power fish type stuff. And that's what I did in this one. And it panned out. I mean, I wasn't feeling super confident going into the tournament, but it was one of those things where, it did seem like a lake where if you get bit in an area, there were generally more fish in that area. Whereas if you went into a cove and didn't get bit, it seemed like it was kind of a dead area. So I just stuck out. I fished 2 completely different areas, and they were the 2 areas in practice where I had bites.
Really consistent. 14.5 on day 1, 15 even on day 2, and then 11.14 on day 3, 41.3 for the total. For a 21st place finish. You're actually your lowest finish of the year, which is strong to say that in 21st.
I'll take it.
Navigation and wind-wise, though, that was the thing that cracked me up, was Eufaula is known for getting gnarly, and you guys had 2 real bad wind days there.
Yeah, so Kyle Cordiana is a buddy of mine, a local, and he's like, Matt, I'm telling you right now, with that northwest wind, he's like, you got to be careful. And I'm a northern guy. I spend a lot of time on the Great Lakes. I feel very comfortable with big water. And honestly, the waves coming back in on day 2, I would say were every bit probably the biggest waves I've ever seen inland on an inland lake.
How big?
I mean, dude, I don't know, but I can tell you, I mean, I was plowing water going 14 to 17 miles an hour.
Oh, that's like Great Lakes
So
speed.
yeah. Like you can't do anything else. And, so my boat is basically pointing towards the sky, right?
Yeah.
And I still almost speared a couple of waves.
How big?
Over
Give me
the
a
top.
foot. Give me a. How do you actually know how to measure a wave? Because I feel like people say heights of waves and they have no clue what they're actually talking about.
I mean, my understanding is it's from crest to ebb.
Okay.
I could be wrong on that. I don't know offhand. You can look it up over there.
Okay, but it describes.
I would be willing. I mean, there were 5-foot waves for sure. And the thing is, they like on the Great Lakes, they get real spread out. They're bigger rollers, and you can kind of run the troughs real good. This was blowing. They were just compacted, and it was just constant boom, boom, boom. It was a long boat ride back on day 2. Day 3 was not much better, but it was better. I mean, realistically, like I'm not a fan of canceling days, but based on knowing what those conditions were on day 2, it would have been a justified day, in my opinion, to cancel.
It is. Well, there's a bunch of different ways to measure it, but yeah, you're basically right. It's the top of the crest to the
bottom,
to the trough.
Dude, bottom. They were big. Like I all I can say is I feel like my boat was at least 5 or 6 feet up, and I had a couple that topped out at the top of my boat.
Key things to do when you're driving in that stuff. You mentioned keep the bow up, but how do you get comfortable driving in that and not freak out?
Yeah, well, keep the front of the boat up is definitely the number one.
So you're trim.
Goal.
Are you trimmed? Are you you got the trim and jack plate buried?
Yeah, I got the jack plate all the way down, and I got my trim real high. Because you're not expecting it that when you're going that fast, you're just trying to keep the bow.
Your trim is up.
Yeah, the trim.
You're not tucking the motor down.
Trim is up. You're trying to get the nose of the boat as high as you can get it.
Because trim down is going to push the boat forward and want to level it out.
Yep, exactly. And then you'll spear your waves.
So if you're practicing this in calm water, put that thing all the way at 8 or 10, and then try to take off when you want that feel like bow you can't see over.
You're basically trying to plow as much water as you can, and so that's a key. Like in the case where we had. Most of the time, what you'd like to be able to do is run the troughs, meaning, you can get to a point where you can actually run at a decent speed, 25 to 35 miles an hour going parallel to the waves. And in this case, the way we were coming in, we had a big rock cliff wall, and we had probably 4 miles to go if you come around that point.
God,
and then it was blowing right into us. So the only way you would have been able to run the troughs is if you went further.
You just get your
and that wouldn't have made sense. So everyone just had to plow water right into it, which means you're keeping the nose up, just plowing into it. And I mean, it just was an uncomfortable ride. I mean, there were guys that came back having back spasms, and it was brutal. It was a very, very rough day.
Here, I got it right here. This interests me. I'm not sure why it interests me, but it does. All right, there it is right there. This is the weather.gov. I feel like that's pretty reliable.
It's official then, yeah.
If it's .gov, it says wave height is the vertical distance between the crest or peak and the trough of a wave. Some other definitions, the still water line is the level of the lake surface if it were perfectly calm and flat.
Yeah.
The crest is the highest point of the wave above the still water line, and the trough is the lowest point of the wave below the still water line. So if you have the still water line and you've got a wave that's 3 foot above it, that's not a 3-footer because the trough might go 2 feet below the still water line, and now that's a 5-footer.
Yep. Yeah, that's one of the things you want to watch out to, especially on a lake like Eufaula too, where there's a lot of shallow water. You may, in those big waves, you may normally be going through an area that you can run through no problem because it's got 3 or 4 foot of water.
Mm-hmm.
If you're on a big, you're in a big trough of a wave, you could actually bottom the bottom of your boat out in an area that you normally could run because the trough is making that water shallower than normal. The other issue with Eufaula is there's a lot of standing timber. So it's not even like you could necessarily just run the bank if you wanted to, because there's areas with standing timber. So in some places for me, when I was coming back, I was forced to go out into deeper stuff or try to go through standing timber. And the worst thing you can have happen in water conditions like we had is to kill your motor. Cause like they were so big that there were several times I wanted, on a long run, I wanted to fill my live wells up to make sure my fish were good. You know, when you're coming back and you know you've got money in your boat, you want to get back safe and you want to make sure the fish are safe. And there were several times I wanted to stop just to kind of give the fish a break, pump some fresh water in. And they're so big, you couldn't just sit in it. If I were to just idle slowly, I would have speared a wave, consistently would have speared waves and sunk the boat at that point.
And these are not the Great Lakes like spread out to where you can get out into 8 to 10 footers. These stack up.
Yeah, that's the problem, is they're so tight you can't do much with them. On the Great Lakes, you do get them big rollers where I've been out in 8 and 10 foot, legit 8 and 10 foot waves, but the thing is they're so spread out at that point. You can actually run at a decent speed, keep the boat on plane and ride up and down the waves. I
did that for the first time out of Clayton, where there were probably 7 footers and I was way offshore and I wanted to go over to these islands, and I was like, holy cow, you can actually, now it was a nightmare getting in because I waited till dusk and then I didn't tell anyone I was out. It was just dumb. Yeah. But on the way over there, I was like, holy cow, I'm running 40 miles an hour on these giant waves. And then you just kind of dip down into the next one and you're good for a couple hundred yards. Then you dip down into the next. It's calming.
It's kind of a very smooth ride too, because you're just going up and down, but you're not dealing with that rough slamming of water.
Worst thing in rough water that you can have happen to you. Would you rather spear one, or what's worse, spearing one or having one as you're climbing, not getting enough and coming over the back? I'd rather spear one than have one come over the back.
How cold's the water temp? I'd rather have one come over the back if it's cold.
Isn't it? Are you more likely to kill the engine then and have major issues with waves coming over the back?
I guess I don't have the answer to that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've had them come over the back.
And the couple times I've had that scares me more, having a wave come over the back, than it does clobbering one. Although clobbering one is not, spearing one is terrifying, because you always have that quarter of a second, the oh crap moment, where you literally can watch your bow going into the wave and the water coming towards you, and you have just enough time to.
I guess the question is, how bad are you spearing it? Are you spearing it where you've filled the whole boat with water?
Have you done that before?
Yeah.
You've submarined one?
Yeah. Yes, unfortunately. And that was, I mean, it wasn't necessarily freaky because it was like not a life defined moment, but it was definitely something where I'm like, man, I got to get this resolved before the boat sinks. The dumbest thing I've ever done is I launched a early May tournament on Sturgeon Bay and made a run in like 10-foot waves. We were rolling. So we launched in the harbor, the shipping canal. And they said they were going to launch us if the Coast Guard, if we didn't have a small craft advisory, which they put on with a 20-mile-an-hour northeast wind. And we had sustained 19. So they let us go and we went out, my team partner and I, and we made probably not that far, 12 mile run, but we had 10-foot rollers. And the problem is the water temp was 41 degrees. So like, had we speared one, it would have, you could actually had hypothermia in the boat even at that point. So it was kind of a dumb move on our part, but we ended up winning the money and a really hefty paycheck. So it was worth it in hindsight, but it was a bad decision, probably.
You just stop. And have you ever been a fan of the multiple bilge pumps? I remember when the elites used to go to like Buffalo and stuff, you had guys who would just have bilge pumps laying in the floor.
Yeah, so I don't carry an extra one. I mean, the Skeeter's got 2 built in already. I'm a big proponent of having like spare dry clothes and things like that. Because like in that tournament, by the time we got to where we were going, we were just drenched. We actually spent like a half hour like doing push-ups and jumping jacks in the boat. We changed, like it was probably 40 degrees out anyway, so it was a really cold day.
Not good.
All for a little brown bass.
How'd you catch him? What'd you catch him on?
Yeah, so the first day I caught him primarily on the core tackle hover rig, which is the jig head that I designed.
All right, explain that thing, because I've talked to Johnny about it and a couple other guys, and it's a unique offering.
Yeah, we put the weight of the hook on the shank of the hook, and then you insert it into the bait about 1/4 inch behind the head, so the weight is fully immersed in the plastic itself. And we have a couple of different sizes, but I was throwing the 1/8 ounce size, so I was flipping it around like you'd flip a light Texas rig, but the difference is
a hover rig.
Yeah.
Okay, I just pulled it up on the screen.
So I was using it with the Berkeley Max Scent Creature Hog, big flat bottom bait, kind of like a beaver.
Really?
Yeah. And so when it hits, the thing just glides all over the place, and it gets a really good reaction strike from the fish. But the key with it, in this case, the first day I was fishing spawning fish, and because it's a 90-degree jig head, when you pick up on the bait, instead of the bait coming up like a Texas rig, it actually does a quick dart from one side to the other, which drives all fish crazy. It creates that reactionary aspect out of the fish. So the first day I caught them primarily on that, but I was fishing like mud banks, soft banks. So I chose to use the hover rig in that situation. The second day I was fishing more exposed areas that were rock. And when I fish rock in dirty water, I like to fish a tungsten head because it creates a lot more sound. And because it was so windy, I was throwing a little 1/2 ounce tungsten jig with a little 3-inch pit boss on the back. And then that was catching the bulk of my fish on day 2 and day 3. I think I caught 1 or 2 on a swim jig as well.
Core tackle is kind of a new thing too, isn't it?
It's like 2 months old.
I mean, that's got to be kind of cool.
I mean, I'm not complaining at all. It's a cool concept, but we call it a tackle company. We have one jig head. We're coming out with a swim bait head in hopefully in about a month. That's completely different as well.
Aren't you always sold out of that jig head though?
No, we've got them in stock right now. We've got lots of them in stock right now.
Okay. And it's also good for it seems like it's designed primarily for suspended fish, just basically looking at it, but you were fishing it like a Texas rig, which was
so the 1/8 ounce size is a little bit heavier for traditional hover strolling. The 3/64 ounce size is the size you'd want to throw with a smaller, more finessey bait for your suspended fish. Or for me, I love it. I love it for like big flat fishing. If you're fishing smallmouth, like when you go to St. Lawrence, it crushes. You put a little Berkeley Max Scent flatworm on it, the 4 1/4 inch size, and it crushes. It's great for largemouth too. I mean,
it's basically a nail weight and a jig hook.
Well, so hover strolling was the idea of taking a 90-degree jig hook, an unmolded jig hook. You insert it 1/4 inch behind the head of the bait, and then you take a nail weight and insert it into the head. And it catches fish like you wouldn't believe, because you get a fall much more similar to like a tube out of whatever traditional bait. So it creates a lot of gliding and spiraling motion, which is a trigger to get fish to bite out of reaction versus out of just a straight fall. The problem with the true hover strolling technique, and this is why we came up with this, is on almost every fish, you'd either be ripping your plastic off the jig hook or your nail weight would be coming out. So like I would go out and I'd be fishing, I'd catch 30 fish and I'd go through 3 bags of flatworms and 3 packs of tungsten nail weights, and it would be really expensive. You can go out now with this hook, do the same thing, achieve the same fall, and you'll go through 1 or 2 baits a day and catch 30 fish.
So you're now a tackle company owner?
I've always been a tackle tinker.
No, tackle owner.
I brought you Krakenstein.
Company owner.
Well,
like you're part owner. You're part owner.
It's Johnny Schultz and I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
YouTuber, professional angler.
Trying to do it all.
You're diversified.
I'm a handyman. That's what I do.
You're basically Ben Milliken without the glide baits.
I mean, I would love to have the glide baits. I am nowhere near.
Have you
close to
have you
Bend,
gotten
but
into that yet?
fishing them?
No, the glide baits and the big baits and the line throughs and all that.
Fishing them.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I've got piles of them. I love
in
it.
the tournaments.
I don't have the confidence that those guys have to throw them yet. I will tell you this. I do in tournaments. One of the most eye-opening experiences I've ever had in fishing was at the Lake Hamilton Forest Wood Cup. I had first 2 days, I struggled like to get anything going. You might get a bite here or there on a topwater bait, but it was really tough. I put on a big glide bait and just went down docks, and it was like every third dock I'd have a 3-pounder come out and look at the bait. I mean, I must have had probably 35 or 40 fish that day. Like in Hamilton at that time of year is known as being a small fish fishery, and the fish that I was seeing were amazing. And I went out in that tournament and committed to that big glide for the majority of the tournament. And I still saw a bunch of fish, but I couldn't get them to commit. So I've got a lot of work to do in that category to make it a true tournament tool, but the draw power of those baits is amazing. And my thought process in that tournament was, okay, well, even if I can't get them to commit to it, I know where they're living now. The problem is it was like they were living everywhere. So like you were fishing the same stuff with your normal Senkos and whatever, and couldn't get them to bite, but you put on that big glide and they'd come out and look at it. So it's one of those tools where I've seen how easily it can burn you as well. I'm not going to say there's a specific time and place, because I think you can throw it all year, but you have to be very refined at fishing it.
What's crazy, we've seen Brandon fish it, we've seen Carl fish it, we've seen a number of guys fish it. There were a bunch of guys in the past in the Red Crest that were throwing, the little trickster. I think the interesting thing about it is the bigger the bait is, the more drawing power it has.
100%.
Whereas the smaller the bait is, the more they're likely to actually eat it. So you get this, you end up in this no man's land to where you want to throw a bait that's big enough to draw the fish out, but you also want to throw a bait that's small enough that they actually commit to it.
Yeah, it's in the tournament world, it's a hard one for me personally to commit to.
Yeah.
I have one tied on a lot of times. I've always got them in the rod box. Boat. Yeah. I've always got them ready.
Through my hand.
And generally speaking, most places I pull it out and make a few casts. I made a few casts at Eufaula with it. I mean, there are a lot of good looking docks on Eufaula.
There's a few.
I didn't catch anything out of them, but there were some good looking docks.
That's not what I like to hear. This brings back, I just pulled up the original flying lure. Remember what that looked like?
Yeah, a lot of people are saying it's a flying lure knockoff, which I would agree that it's got similar characteristics to the flying lure, but this is so much better in that you can put this into any bait, any plastic bait out there. Whereas the flying lure was basically a flattened tube with a specific jig head that fit into that tube. So, but it has very similar motion.
I've never understood why that has not made a comeback. Like the flying lure is legitimately, in my opinion, is the most fish catchingest made for TV bait that ever came out.
I would agree. I don't know that there is another, if you want to call it gimmicky, made for TV gimmicky bait that actually worked as well as it did.
It would still work. Like I've actually done some pushing to bring that back.
Oh, I mean, I don't know why it wouldn't work. It had great. I don't know why it didn't stick around, to be honest with you. That's a good question. Who made that? I know it was made for TV, but
Alex Langer. Alex Langer's
most
flying
of those made
lure
for TV. He probably just moved on to his next.
Oh, you've heard of Alex Langer?
Yeah, I think didn't he come out with like the helicopter lure and the walking worm and all that?
Well, I thought that was Roland Martin.
I think he was on that, but I don't know if it was straight Roland Martin.
Let's see, Alex Langer.
He's done a couple.
Flying lure kit.
You can still buy it?
On YouTube. Oh my gosh.
You're going to be loading the boat up with those, aren't you?
Hold on. Let me go full screen on this. No, we're not going to add that to the screen. We're going to stop it and then we're going to re-add it with some volume. How does that sound? Entire screen. Share system audio.
way to put it. They're not learning on that bait. You're getting multiple.
That's the flying lure.
Same fish.
I have not found a fish. We have letters, stories, pictures to show, and that's the bottom line. You got the net out, and we never anything. And recently, underneath it, and all I saw was a swirl, but all of a sudden I saw my line going out in the water, and I yanked on it and hung him, and I fought him for about 2 minutes and got him in.
Incredible success with it. I mean, some of the success that kid has had is just it's made a father real proud to see a kid catch a 6-pound bass or see him catch numerous bass. It's something. It is something.
Other than let it be, let it do its thing.
The presentation is so natural and so easy if you just don't mess it up or screw it up. If you just let the lure do its own thing, let it be a natural flying or gliding body in the water.
All right, that's enough of that.
Yeah, that's the whole thing with the hover rig too. Just let it fall. Just let it do its thing. But then when you pop it off the bottom because of the 90, you get some really cool movement.
Yeah, but does the flying lure, does the hover rig bring you closer to your kid like the flying lure did there?
It was
you go out on the water.
It was never even a thought of mine until like occasionally I'll get comments where people are like, "It's just like the flying lure," and I'm like, "Kinda." My little brother was a huge flying lure fan.
I think
too. He was the only one that had him in the family.
My uncle had him, and we took him to Canada before. They caught the crap out of him.
Tubes work wonders, and it's basically.
I want the flying lure, but I want to be able to make it semi-weedless and have that in a trick worm that you can skip around the docks. Then, because that's where that erratic going down around the posts.
All the hover rigs come weedless. Little wire weed guard in it.
Can you put it on a trick worm?
Oh yeah. Actually, one of the soft stick baits. People are loving it with soft stick baits. You get like people like to throw like a soft stick bait on an 1/8 ounce Texas rig or something, and they're using this and they're getting really cool gliding motion out of it and crushing them. The feedback has been, so Johnny Schultz of Fish the Moment and I have known since through our trial with this, like how good they work. My biggest fear coming out with it was that people would I felt all of this added stress of now I'm selling something to people that I want it to work, right? And just because I can get it to work or Johnny can get it work doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go over well with people. And the reality is the feedback is amazing. I get pictures and emails every day from people who are like, "Oh my God, I've gone out and caught, my personal best on it," or "I've gone out and had the best day of fishing of the year." And people love it. And one of the best parts about it is you go through so much less tackle because now it's all one unit versus, a bait being slid onto a jig head in a traditional manner.
Do you got a pack that you could hook me up with here? You got your rig here, don't you?
I mean, there may be some in the boat.
Okay. I'm interested.
Yeah.
I mean, I can go through. I'll just order them regular, I guess.
No, we got some in the boat. I'll take care of you.
All right. We're going to take our second break of the show. When we come back, more with Matt Stefan. We're going to talk about his strategy. We're going to talk about what he doesn't want to talk about. He's halfway through the year. His goal is to qualify for the BPT. He's in second place in the Angler of the Year standings. And we'll talk a little bit about a little bit of a snafu that happened with the Angler of the Year leader, current Angler of the Year leader, and Ron Nelson on Eufaula. But it is BTL on a Monday. Matt Stefan in studio. We'll be back right after this. Have you considered purchasing new electronics for your rig? The type of mounts you choose to protect your investment should be part of the decision-making process. No matter if you prefer 1, 2, or 3 graphs up front, Beatdown Outdoors has a solution for you. Adjustable, versatile, rigid, and made in the USA. What's your ultimate electronics setup? Check out the full selection of Beatdown Outdoors products by visiting beatdownoutdoors.com.
Are you looking to install your own fishing electronics? The solution is the Bass Tank Power Harness. It takes the guesswork out of installation. No more voltage issues or interference. Designed by an engineer so that you can get professional results right there in your own garage. Installation done right with the help of the Bass Tank Power Harness. You can feel confident knowing that your installation was done right. The Bass Tank Power Harness. Give us a call or order yours today at thebasstank.com.
Get the best patterns backed by tournament data. Start by finding the best 10% of your lake. Know exactly what to look for and what to throw. After that, just put them in the boat. Try the Deep Dive app today.
Look at that beast right there.
Shoreline Boat and RV, dock rash, storm damage, collision repair, that deep scratch or gouge from trying to access that secret creek. Shoreline Boat and RV can get your prized possession back in mint condition and looking good on the water, fast. All repairs are done in-house, so they're able to get your boat or RV back to brand new, quickly. All Shoreline's work comes with a rock-solid warranty. Find out more at ShorelineBoatandRV.com, Kansas City, Austin, and Tulsa.
Having confidence in your tackle while on the water is one of the main things to success, in my opinion. In the last couple of years with Denali, I've had just that. From anything from spinning rods, casting rods, tungsten products, even now to casting and spinning reels, I have the confidence to go out there and get the job done and know that all my equipment is going to handle it and do it just the way I want it. The thing about Denali is you've got great quality products at a great price point, so make sure you check them out. I'm the kind of guy that never leaves a house without a pocket knife, and Gamakatsu's come out with the EDC series of knives. EDC stands for everyday carry, so whether you're on the water or off, you can always have it with you. The best thing about it to me is that assisted open feature. With this D2 blade, you've got it right here at your fingertips, so if you can't find your scissors, you need to cut a knot, you need to cut your braid, you've always got it. Make sure you check it out. Never leave home without your Gamakatsu EDC knife.
Born in Japan, using technology, innovation, and precision, Sunline produces the widest selection of fishing lines at the most technologically advanced line factory in the world. Manufactured at the strictest tolerances to produce victories at the highest levels of tournament bass fishing. From household names like Christie, Swindle, and Cruz, to young guns like Cook, Logan, New, and Welcher, they all trust Sunline to take them to the top of the leaderboard. Choose the line that will give you the strength to guarantee your confidence. Sunline.
All right, welcome back, BTL, on a Monday with Matt Stefan in studio, and Matt was looking at my wall of dollar bills over there. Well, I mean, there's all sorts of different denominations.
You got a couple $100 on the wall over there.
Yeah, but it's who signed it.
Yeah, which makes them worth like a couple extra dollars.
Makes them worth a couple extra dollars. Is that the holy grail of buddy tournament fishing, is to get some signed simoleons from one of your counterparts?
Never hurts. Never hurts. It actually is disappointing because I was telling Matt during the break how I lost a $20 bet to Kyle Cordiana, and I should have signed it. I don't know why I didn't sign it.
You lost it?
Yeah, I lost. Well, we bet.
Well, no. Why would you want him to have your signed money? You don't ever want other people to have you don't want people to walk around with a Matt Stefan signed 20, like in their collection. You want to have theirs.
Well, yeah, but that's usually how it works. When you lose the bet.
Right. But then you said you were disappointed that you didn't sign it.
Well, yeah, I feel like because that's the idea of the bet. I'm glad I didn't sign it because I don't want him to have the dollar bill with my name on it. But
right.
Like, I feel like as part of the bet, I probably should have done that to justify the bet.
Yeah. Like, I mean, my prize one up there, Justin Lucas.
What was the bet that you made with him?
First, biggest, and most. And I had first, I had biggest, and I had most.
You crushed him.
I destroyed Justin Lucas.
Yeah, you should start the show with that.
And
every time.
So he just gave me a 5, and instead of 3 1s, and I said, you got to sign it. And then he signed it, but he wrote something on there that I can't show on air because he was smart about it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. So I could never show a picture of it or anything because he wrote a bad word on it above it. He said something, you're something lucky. And then signed his name.
That's a good move. I feel like he learned that from somebody else down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
it was smart. And then the one that I've got the most is the Rojas one, and that has been going back and forth between me and Dean for 10 years now.
That is
15 years.
That is a fully defaced $100 bill right now.
Like, we bet on we don't bet, we just go back and forth. We'll do the college football national championship, we'll do where he finishes at a tournament, we'll do where I finish in an open. We'll do who will win Angler of the Year. Like when Brandon was making his run, I think I said
Brandon's going to win Angler of the Year. And Ross is like, I think he's going to finish second. So I got that signed.
Yeah. Like, dude, you got a lot of cool stuff in here. You should have more people do live in studio live.
I will. Well, you just told me it was like out of it. Oh, pull that hat down right there.
The OU?
Yeah. Hold on. It's like, take it off of the deal there, off of the hook. All right. There's something crazy about that hat. What do you notice about that hat? You're looking at it right now.
Yeah, it says Alabama on the back.
I was at Academy. Look at that hat. It says Alabama on the back. It's a misprint, but it's got OU on the front. That's got to be worth something, doesn't it? Two juggernaut football programs.
You paid $19.99 for it?
100%. That thing's got to be worth at least $50
from Academy Sports. Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder how many they sold. How many?
I checked all the others and they said Oklahoma on the back. It was the only one that was misprinted that said.
Dude, that's like
Alabama.
the producer, right? I see some guy working the line being like, I'm having a bad day. I'm gonna play a joke on somebody at this point, and he's like printing all these out. Can you imagine if you were the Oklahoma fan that bought this
and didn't realize it?
You get it home and you're like, did I buy an Alabama hat? And you're like,
yeah. So then that thing right above it, right there, see that line ball?
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a Zell Roland line ball.
Nice.
That's Zell Roland's used monofilament.
Where'd you get the KVD little figurine?
I don't know.
How many angler figurines are there?
That's a good question. There's at least one with KVD. And then that's live well water from Jordan Lee right before he weighed in. There's the blacked out Vixen. That was like the one that they only had the 1500. Oh, I
got one of those.
There's the color number 7 that sold out in 3 minutes on LureNet.
Let me see that one.
Yeah.
Shout out to my buddy Mike Weiss for getting me a black Vixen.
You did get one of those?
Yeah, I have one.
So there's 17 stripes on it. That was each of the year of BTL for 17 years. It says 7 underneath it, which is the color. Because when Jeffries came back from his traumatic brain injury, I said, "Oh, you seem normal." I was afraid you were going to say that your favorite color was 7. And so then that was the color 7. And then it's like named with Frank. And then this I actually got in the 98 Classic. The fish whistle that Brandon always kind of blew after Brian Kirchhoff because Brandon came up through the Bass Nation. So, and then I just saw that microphone and thought it looked cool.
It does. It fits well in here.
A bunch of different stuff. Yeah. You're trying to avoid the topic, but we're going to talk a little bit about it.
I'm really not. You think I don't want to talk about it. I just said it's too early in the year to talk about.
No, you're halfway through the year, which is hard to believe.
It's only a 6 tournament season,
which you're halfway through. So you're three events in, and you have 544 Angler of the Year points. Like I said, an 18th, a 20th, and a 21st. So you are you're where you need to be to be within reach of the goals that you set prior to the start of the year. Is that a fair way to word that?
Yeah, sounds good to me. As my wife Sarah and I say all the time, we have one goal this year, and that's to get to the next level. The only thing I can qualify for at this point is to move up to a BPT. So we are going to do everything possible to stay in the top 8 for the rest of the year.
And that's where it has to be, top 8.
Yeah, top 8, and there's no rolling down. So like Michael Neal, Dakota Ebert, I think, are in the top 10. So at some point, guys, if you get a cold or something and feel like not fishing one,
so that's
feel free not to fish.
Keep 2 of the BPT guys in instead of roll down and bring 2 more of the MLF Invitational guys.
Yeah, and those two guys are such hammers, you can't expect either to falter.
Yeah, back-to-back Angler of the Year for Michael Neal, and then if you look at Dakota Ebert,
it's like the hottest, and
he finished 63rd. I believe this week at Eufaula, but he also has 2 first-place finishes this year in a Toyota Series event and an MLF Invitational, and then his other finishes are 28th, 16th, 2nd, and 28th.
Yeah, those 2 guys are like the 2 hottest fishermen going right now, I feel like.
It'll be very interesting to see what happens with Dakota Ebert over the next 2 to 3 years. I think Michael Neal has established himself for... he's going to be in the top 10 of whatever he fishes for as long as he wants to fish it. Would you not agree with that?
Yeah, I don't. I don't like saying somebody can't get better, but I feel like Michael Neal is already at the top. So from a performance standpoint, if he continues to get better,
and he's young,
yeah,
and he owns a tackle shop. I mean, his business, very business.
Yeah,
savvy.
he's doing it right. I mean, both those guys are just straight hammers, and they are phenomenal fishermen. I don't expect either to falter, but to be honest with you, I don't. To stay where I need to stay, I can't falter either, and that's my expectation, is to go out and finish the year strong.
What do you guys have left?
We go to in 2 weeks. We go to Lake of the Ozarks, which I've never been to. And then in June, we go to the Potomac River, and then we end at the Mississippi River.
And you're very familiar with lacrosse.
I mean, I really like the Mississippi River. I am not a straight local river rat, but I've fished it a lot. I've got a very good track record. There's not another fishery I would choose to end the season at.
And then Potomac River you have to feel comfortable on the Potomac River, as much river grass fishing as you've done in your life.
So tidal water and I don't necessarily get along real well. I have had good finishes at the Potomac. I fished it a bunch. I know, the areas I like to concentrate on, but I've had some hiccups there. So I have a love-hate relationship with the Potomac.
Okay. And then you just did well at Eufaula, and Lake of the Ozarks isn't, I mean, it's different, but I mean, you're talking a non-grass rock fishery.
Yeah, it's Ozarks style fishing. I really enjoy the Ozarks region. So I'm looking forward to that one. I've never been there, but I'm looking forward to it.
If you find a boat dock, fish it.
I heard.
I know you can't get information.
I heard there's a couple out there. I don't know where to find them, but
I'm going
to
to Google
out
that.
there.
I would love to know how many boat docks.
Isn't it the most heavily pressured body of water by motor boats per acre?
That would not surprise me if that was true.
I'm actually hoping we get some weather that's not ideal, so we don't have to deal with that.
Yeah, you're right, where everybody's going to be getting the vessels out and on the wall. 90% of them are on the water anyway. They just have to go down.
First week of May, it could be really warm. If that's the case, that could be a bummer.
I would love to know how many boat docks are on Lake of the Ozarks, because it would have to be in the tens of thousands. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, no, I've looked at maps. It's pretty much like, how you generally, when you do some lake study and you're looking at docks, you're looking for docks that are set up in specific manners. And like in this place, there's so many docks that it just completely.
There's 25,000 boat docks on Lake of the Ozarks.
Yeah, how many do you think I can hit in a week?
25,000, Matt.
I wonder how many boat docks could you fish in a day, do you think?
I don't know, but that kind of makes me sad that there's 25,000 people that have made better life decisions than I have, that have a lake house on Lake of the Ozarks.
Dude, that's a lot of docks.
25,000.
And well, you say that. The funny part is most of those boat docks, like how many of them have like little living quarters and platforms and tops? Like the docks are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, I bet.
Yeah.
Not even to mention the giant cigarette boats that are parked inside of them.
Yeah, it's freaking wild.
I can't wait. I'm looking forward. I want to keep fishing. It's when you're fishing good, you want to keep fishing.
What do you think constitutes fishing good? I've heard that before. I've heard guys say that all the time. Describe what fishing good means.
I mean, it's just a matter of getting on a roll. Like I think a lot of times, I think your fishing performance, because it's so mental, I truly believe half of fishing, 50% of it is mental. Your decision making, your thought process, all of that goes into your success on the water. And I think if you're in a good place in life, you don't have outside stress, outside worries, a lot of times you're making good decisions. And I think that's why you see people go on what we consider heaters, right? In the sport. I think a lot of that has more to do with how comfortable they are with everything else going on.
That's a fair point.
You'll get your boat dock. You'll make it happen, Matt.
I hope so. Something's not right here. This does not calculate with me. How are you in second halfway through the year and you haven't even covered your entry fees yet? That's bad payback. You won't say it. I'll say it. That's bad payback, Matt.
I've said this lots of times on my own channel. the professional tournament fishing is not a good place to make a
You're
living.
in second out of 166 guys who have fished it. Second, like there's one.
Yeah.
That's Rod Nelson. Then there's, let me make this clear. Then there's you. That's you. You're two. You're number two. You're halfway through the year. You do this for a living. Your entry fees for all six are $30,000, over $30,000.
The reality of our sport is tournament bass fishing, in my opinion, is much more of a marketing vehicle. And therefore, the anglers that are fishing it should ideally have other ways to use the tournaments to help monetize their other business revenue streams. And for me, I'm, I being a tournament bass fishing junkie and no longer at the top level, for personal reasons, I have to get to the top level. Like I want to get
That's sad
back
though,
to
because you haven't changed the level that you fished, and you were at the top level for a decade. And now all of a sudden they're saying, hey, we're going to slash we're going to slash your payouts. We're going to now consider you below the top level. You've got a bunch of professional anglers that are still on that tour.
Yeah, I agree completely. There's a bunch of us that I feel like are full-time anglers. We make a living in the fishing industry. And from that standpoint, we can, we want to get to the next level, because the reality of it is the things that have happened in our sport, whether or not we've changed, our value as an angler has dropped, which means we need to get back to the top level in order to reclaim a bunch of that value. And I don't see our value increasing at, one of the so-called AAA circuits, whether you want to call it that or not. But the reality is I don't think our value will ever increase. It'll probably continue to erode away and decrease more if we stay at that level. So, for me, it's a matter of, I've got all of these different things I'm doing.
Irons in the fire.
That's what I was trying to say. Yes. Irons in the fire. And for me, I know how much better my fire will burn if I can get to back to the top level. And, I honestly, I would love to fish BPT. I'd love to fish the elites. I just want to get back to the top level. Like that's what it comes down to. And right now I'm more than happy to be in the path to go to BPT. And if I can make that happen after the last 3 events of the year, I will be a very, very happy camper.
This was the golden era right here. Have you seen this book before? The series?
No, I haven't seen.
You haven't seen this book? This is Doug Cox. Man, I haven't talked to him in a long time. And Steve Bowman did this in 2006. This was the first inaugural year. Well, it's that poster there, 2006. It's that trophy. Just leaf through that. That is the entire year in pictures for the 2006 season. And I was talking to some of the guys about some of the deals that went down. Some of the deals that went down in that 06, 07, 08 era. Dude, there were guys that were making real sponsorship money. Oh, look at that. Let me see that. Oh, hold that up. There it is right there. There's KJ, Kelly Jordan, the 2006. That would have been his last win with Bass.
Still crushing it. Yeah, dude. I mean, it's the sport, the value of the tournament anglers has gone down dramatically with other marketing vehicles out there for companies to put their dollars into. And that's, I've told you before, I wish I had started my YouTube channel years ago, because I feel like I would have been so much more ahead of the curve. And, the thing is, like, the YouTubers are taking some of those dollars away, which is driving the value of a full-time angler, just somebody who fishes tournaments. Your value is dropping unless you truly are performing at a super high level where your performance on the water is making you an angler that's in high demand. But if you're somebody like myself that's not a flashy angler, somebody who's a consistent angler, been doing it now for, this is my 13th year, I think, it's, my value is really being achieved more through my YouTube content that's helping me promote myself to other avenues. And I just see if I can get to the next level, it should all come together and put me back in a good position. So as much as this is the heyday of tournament angler fishing.
Mhm.
The whether it's a problem or not, the thing is, anglers, we need to adjust and continue to evolve with the other ways that, you know, different economies are adjusting in order to get back to that. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, if you talk to Ben Milliken is in a phenomenal place.
He's in the heyday.
He's in the heyday of today, whereas these guys were in the heyday of back then. And it has to do more with how the industry has kind of changed some of the marketing approach.
That's really good stuff. That's good stuff. I want to bring a couple more things up before we wrap things up and you get back on the road, headed up north to the land of
I'm in no
walleye
hurry.
and cheese.
We got we're getting 4 to 8 inches of snow as we speak, so I don't even know if I'll make it home tonight.
I mean, I got a pond 15, 20 minutes away that's got 10-pounders swimming in it.
That crappie or bass? Because I know you're hot on the crappie thing. Okay,
like
big ones.
Big ones.
Okay, well, let's talk after the show.
Before, I think the last show that we did before the week break was about the Western Bass Shootout. Had Rick Pierce and Billy Egan, Jeremy DeHart, a couple of anglers that were on that talked about this Western Bass Shootout. Basically, the West Coast are trying to make it the Bassmaster Classic. Rick Pierce from Bass Cat, really involved on the West Coast. You know what he does with one bass out there in the U.S. Open and the California Open and Arizona Open. And then also with the Wild West teams out there. So they basically combine the best of the best. And then, dude, you want to talk about Dakota Eber being on a roll, like on the West Coast, like the equivalent of that would be Ken Ma over the past 2 years.
Crushing.
He's winning Apex Series. He's winning the team events out there, and he wins the Western Bass Shootout on the Delta 3-day total of 61.54, wins by 7 pounds. Gets a 2023 Bass Cat Cougar FTD rigged with Garmin and Power Pole package, $20,000 cash, $125,000 to kick things off. I know that they did like an inside weigh-in and all that among some of the best out there. So we'll get Ken Ma on again. I was going to have him on the last show, but I always have Ken on when we talk about the West Coast. I think we gave, Alex Klein and Bill Brown, Nick Salvucci a little bit of love, but man, dude keeps winning. We'll keep having him on BTL. So big shout out to Ken Ma, one of the really, really good dudes out west. Like I said, I've known him for about 10 years, but he's another dude who understands the marketing side of it, the promotional side of it, and how to get things done both on and off of the water. You're a big U.S. Open guy.
I love that tournament, dude. The U.S. Open is what people don't talk about it. It's basically like the third or fourth biggest tournament from a payout standpoint.
Okay, let's do prestige, payout, everything all combined. Yeah. Let's rank them. I'll start. Bassmaster Classic, number 1. You agree?
I agree.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like right now you got to go then Red Crest is number 2.
Okay.
And then I would say US Open for sure. And then probably Toyota Championship.
You're going to put the US Open at number 3?
Do you put it above Red Crest?
Right now, based on history, I put the U.S. Open above Red Crest because Red Crest is only 3 years old.
Yeah, I agree with you on that front.
But the caliber of angler in it is so much higher.
And the
Red
payout,
Crest.
So like I think even though Red Crest is, to me, the Red Crest is a continuation. They're gonna hate me for saying this. I think it's a continuation of the Forrest Wood Cup is kind of how I view it. Meaning, that was a very prestigious tournament. So I feel like, this is, even though there is no Forrest Wood Cup anymore, this is what is now within the organization that was once the FLW Tour. So,
okay,
you're talking about a $300,000 payday fishing against some of the top anglers in the world. You don't have triple A influence. But I would put the US Open above the Toyota Championship.
Yes, I would too.
Even though like the Toyota Championship still pays more.
Yeah. And it's really hard to make that
qualify.
Yeah. So let's do Toyota Championship number 4. Let's just keep going down the list.
Okay.
Would you put the Bass Nation National Championship in there at number 5?
From a prestigious.
So here's the problem. You've got the All-American, the TBF. Like there's a lot I feel on
like
the MLF side that have lost a lot. Like at one point I would put the All-American at number 3 ahead of the US Open.
I think the All-American is probably number 5 on that list. I mean, from a
currently, let's do current.
From a prestigious standpoint, I think
they just had the All-American. There was like no coverage of it.
I know, but it's still the All-American. I feel like if you're saying the US Open has the prestigiousness of it, the All-American is like one of the most premier ones in the sport.
Okay, why would you not put the All-American then above the Toyota Series Championship?
Just because of the size of the tournament, meaning like are we talking prestigiousness or are we talking?
We're talking everything all included. The
Cause,
biggest tournaments that you can win, right?
Because
everything all included.
I think the Toyota Series Championship is more valuable as a whole to an angler than the All-American, right?
But if you win the All-American, you have you're opened up to a lot of things that you would never have been opened up to before. Whereas at the Toyota Series Championship, your life doesn't really change.
No, but I think the Toyota Series anglers are more accustomed to the fishing lifestyle. I think you see a lot of All-Americans that have won that don't necessarily go anywhere in the sport because
there's also a ton that have Stephen Browning, Sean Grigsby.
Yeah, I mean they 100%. But I'm not saying not saying they don't go anywhere because they're not good enough fishermen. I'm saying they don't go anywhere because they don't want to give up their good day job.
Okay, so we got the Classic Red Crest US Open, Toyota Series Championship, All-American. I think you got to put the Bass Nation Championship. I feel like it should be higher because it's launched so many careers. Paul Mueller, Brandon Polinick, Caleb Sumrall.
Yeah.
Ike was in that.
I mean, I put that on the same level as...
You look at the prestigious, I just talked about it with the Brian Kirchhoff, Terry McWilliams.
I would put that on the same level as the All-American, but the thing is, I feel like the All-American has more prestigiousness. It may not anymore,
but neither does the Bass Nation. Bass has really watered that down as far as what they get and how big it is. They still do a decent job covering, and then especially next year, it's going to go to 250 boats.
So where do you put the MPFL Championship?
They haven't had one.
They haven't, but they're gonna have one this year.
I don't think you can put it on the list until it actually freaking happens, Matt.
I mean, that might be true, but hypothetically, had they had one last year.
Joe's saying the Sturgeon Bay Open above the TBF Championship. I do know up north. Oh, what about the Canadian Open? I think Charlie Hartley is a Canadian Open champion.
Well, and then you start talking.
Is that a thing? Do you guys know about the Canadian Open up north?
Oh yeah.
Like, is there?
Oh yeah.
That's a big tournament.
Well, I mean, so if you're talking the Canadian Open, which is the one over on Lake Ontario, that's the one the Johnston boys always mop up on. But I mean, then you've got a lot of big ones over like in Gussie's neck of the woods too, on Lake of the Woods. There's a lot of really good individual. I mean, the Sturgeon Bay Open is that's kind of under. There's some issues going on right now with the locals up there, but that's a very prestigious. Like if you're talking about the upper Midwest, the Sturgeon Bay Open is probably the most prestigious.
Okay, so would you put the Sturgeon Bay Open ahead of the Ray Scott ABA National Championship?
I mean, so I'm not that familiar with the
Ray
ABA circuit. Well, the only time we had the ABA,
like JB Hortons won the ABA, a bunch of guys. I mean, the ABA is a very prestigious.
It ends up being big, just like, I mean, there's like US Anglers Choice has a real big championship as well. I mean, there's a lot of big local tournament circuits. And
we're talking national stuff.
Well, so the ABA you would
goes from
national?
all over the country. All over the country.
Yeah, see, I consider that I don't know. I don't know it well enough. And the fact that I don't know it would indicate
you
to
qualify
me that
through all of your, it's basically like a BFL deal, and then you go to the regional, and then you make the.
Well, but that's like if you're talking local circuits, that's US Anglers Choice is all regionals and move up. I mean, I feel like if I'm making a list, I'm keeping it more geared towards.
But I don't think the Sturgeon Bay Open you have to qualify for.
No, you don't have to qualify. Do you?
You have to qualify for.
You don't have to qualify for any of the Canadian tournaments either.
Well, I mean, it's just like what I mean is it's a one-off.
Yeah, well, that's what the Sturgeon Bay Open is.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe the Canadian Open is too. The U.S. Open can be a one-off, but I'm talking about big time. We've got the Classic, Red Crest, U.S. Open, Toyota Championship, All-American, the Bass Nation Championship, the Canadian Open.
Here's the thing, though, like with the U.S.
The TBF National Championship. Go ahead.
Have you been around a better atmosphere? Maybe the Classic, but like for out west, the U.S. Open is the Bassmaster Classic for those guys.
Yeah,
like you're at the registration meeting and guys are like hooting and hollering. I mean, it's like they're ready to rumble. I mean, it's a good event. Like you want a fun atmosphere. You're in the Vegas area. Like it's just a good tournament. And I would love for it to get back to Lake Mead though.
The Basser All-Star Classic. Is that a Japanese event?
I don't know what that is. You're going to put it on the list?
No. We got to get to 10. I've just decided.
How many do we got?
We got 9. I got the Classic, Red Crest, U.S. Open, Toyota Championship, All-American.
What about down in Texas, the Brandon Belt?
That's I'm wanting. Yeah.
I mean, that's a big time, isn't that?
It's like a team tournament deal.
Well, a lot of the Canadian ones we've mentioned. The U.S. Open is a team deal.
Kind of.
It's a team deal.
Kind of. Where would you put a college national champion? But that's not open to anybody. That's
I'm not ranking that.
This is what I've got right now. Classic, Red Crest, U.S. Open. Number 4, Toyota. Number 5, All-American. Number 6, Bass Nation. Number 7, Canadian Open. Number 8, the TBF. Number 9, Ray Scott.
I mean, I think it's a solid list of tournaments that I'd be happy to win any of those.
Yeah.
You really want to get the 10.
The Basser All-Star Classic is basically the Japanese version of the Bassmaster Classic.
I'll put them up there then. Give them 10th.
Okay. If you guys disagree with that.
That
was pretty random. Hallman and I came up with the qualifying criteria for who the BTL Angler of the Year was.
Yeah, I watched that one.
We had some people that were upset at our criteria.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Wheeler agreed with the criteria.
I thought your criteria was good.
Wheeler agreed with Michael Neal winning it.
I liked your criteria, but I thought there were a lot of other variables you guys could have computed into your calculations.
We're going to do that this year.
Okay.
100%. So I'll get with you before that.
Yeah.
Also want to thank everybody. I'm wearing the St. Jude Children's Research Hospital Bass Fishing Saves Lives t-shirt for the Dick Hiley St. Jude Bass Classic, May 6th and 7th out of Wabasha,
that's
Minnesota.
Getting to be a big tournament too.
It is getting to be a big tournament. Heard there was a great push. Also, thank you to Bassmaster for reposting that stuff. That might have to do with a lot of the sales and posts. So big shout out to those of you who have bought the t-shirt. If you want to still support the St. Jude cause. So here's how it works. Your takeoff number is based on how much money you raise for St. Jude. So we did it, the t-shirts through ATS printing, but you can also direct donate. That direct donate tab will be in the link in the YouTube bio for this show. Every $20 that you donate, make sure you put your name and your email address. You'll be put into a drawing for either a Blackfish rain suit or an AFCO rain suit from Adam Bartuzek or myself. There's a handful of people that have done the direct donation. Like I said, it's in the link here. But if you donate $100, you get 5. You donate $200, you get 10. And we're talking $300 to $500 rain suits here. We're going to run that through the 21st. So you have another week to do that on the direct donate tab that will be in the description following the show. So right now you have a really good chance, like if you go in and donate $500, that you're going to be able to do a tax write-off for a $500 donation, and you have like a 50% chance of getting
awesome.
Either a Blackfish or an AFCO shirt, rain suit.
I like it.
So holy cow, we're an hour and 40 minutes in.
Doing good.
Did you know we were that far in?
No, I would have said an hour.
That's because I don't have the screen set up for you yet. What else you got before we wrap things up here?
I'm just happy to be here. I love doing this show. It's a lot of fun.
I love having you on. The guest list, like I said, whenever you're on, very good feedback.
Cool.
I wish I could say the same, that I was doing as good as you and our other buddy Miles Berghoff from our Supernatural show. You guys are both killing it. Miles in the Opens, you in the MLF Invitationals. Like I said, Ben Milliken tomorrow, and then we're going to dive into the debacle that was the Bassmaster Open. Going to bring Johnny Schultz in. We did some really cool stuff beforehand. I need to call Johnny back. He called Brad Hallman, and he's like, "You think Matt's upset because we kind of came up with a game strategy, and then he finished 140th? Like, is he distraught?" And I was like, "No, I'm good, man." So I need to call him up and get him booked. So either Wednesday's show is either going to be that, or Kelly Jordan, or something else.
Dude, I'll tell you, not to give a straight plug to Johnny's Deep Dive app, but I was using that for Lake Eufaula. So it's
legit, isn't it, with the water clarity?
Yeah, dude. Oh my God. I checked it every day. I'm checking it, and you would not believe the random
and it's clear.
The random places that are clearing up, like from day to day to day, and it allowed me to stay on top of the areas that I needed to go. So it was pretty impressive to see how good that was working and how valuable it was.
I've turned down a bunch of different apps for sponsorship on BTO, and that was the one. And when we first got with them, Jeffries was still with it, and I was like, listen, this is legit.
So I've talked to him quite a bit about getting the information that goes into making the selections for that, for the criteria that goes into the Deep Dive app. And it's not simple information. It's computing tons and tons of data from tournaments and compiling it all. We're talking thousands and thousands of data rows. It's not just random stuff being pulled out of anywhere.
Oh yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Also, what is it? Is it Bass Fishing Confidential?
Bass Fishing Declassified.
Oh, Bass Fishing Declassified. I'm sorry.
We talked about Confidential as a name for the channel, but no,
Bass Fishing Declassified. It's Johnny, you, Kyle Cordiana, Miles Berghoff. Who else?
And then we got Jimmy Easterling. He does all the editing.
Jimmy Easterling.
Yeah.
And then Matt Stefan Fishing on YouTube and all the social media stuff. Daily videos.
Yep. Check it out.
Thank you very much for jumping on BTL today. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Hope everyone thoroughly enjoyed it. Really good feedback for our first day back on Monday, April 17th. Go donate, direct donate to St. Jude. 100% of the proceeds go to the Dick Hiley St. Jude Bass Classic, trying to raise $1 million for the 25th anniversary. This year raised over $700,000 for the 24th edition. The link for that is in the description for this show on YouTube. That's all we got for today. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for jumping in studio. That was fun.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, we will talk to everybody tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. The man, Ben Milliken, talking about his dominating swim bait performance in the latest Bassmaster Open on Toledo Bend Reservoir. I'm looking forward to it. I know everyone else is looking forward to it. We'll talk to you guys then.